Adam.
Very
2
nice.
0 on the season. We beat the 49ers just like we all predicted when we did the schedule
And your skull
release.
chant was way better than Mike Conley's. He did not put much effort into that at all when he sounded the horn on Sunday.
Really? See, I was just getting off work, so I missed the first 10 minutes of the game, so I did not see that part of it.
But it is nice to see other Minnesota sports people getting involved in Viking stuff. I like watching Timberwolves games, so it's cool to see him do that.
I agree with Jake. I like what I am seeing from the Minnesota Vikings.
I think he's talking about your face.
Too. You could be talking about the Fiend over here, whatever direction that is. You could be talking about me. You could be talking about Adam. We are the Purple People podcast. We're excited. I'm excited. Kyle Smith is not with us this week, but I assure you, yeah, he's on assignment. I assure you, he's pumped wherever he is right now too for our 2-0 undefeated Minnesota Vikings goal.
Top of the NFC North somehow.
Yeah, just like we all predicted.
Yeah, what next week won't be an easy one, but boy, that game on Sunday, I thought Minnesota was going to get bullied in the trenches, but that was not the case.
I will continue to have faith as well, too, Jonathan. I am excited for this team. I think that this defense underneath Brian Flores, we will be talking probably a lot about defense this week, Adam. They have a very good unit in the works here for this season. They're going to be able to ride this defense, and it's essentially don't mess up on offense. And I think Sam Darnold is showing that he can manage a game for these Minnesota Vikings and also come up with some really big clutch throws for us as well, too.
I think Kevin O'Connell, he might not be getting enough credit for what he's been able to do. He's been able to put in an offense that's simple enough for Sam Darnold to execute on a relatively short period of time. And he did it without Jordan Addison this week, and with Justin Jefferson leaving the game, he still was able to move the ball down the field and get things done.
Dude, Jalen Naylor, talk about stepping up when we need him the most. Step on in, be that wide receiver one, and the other receivers underneath him being able to step up and fill the void. That's been an issue for a long time for the Vikings. I've always felt like you have your starters that you can rely on, and then there's not been consistent depth underneath them. This team seems to have a lot of depth at a lot of different positions.
I'll admit, I was worried about that wide receiver depth. I didn't think that there was a lot there when you look. I thought it was kind of shallow.
Yeah, I did too.
Like Trent Sherfield are still contributing this season when I wasn't sure if they'd even crack the field on offense.
But we're seeing good depth, I think, at tight end. We're seeing depth at receiver. Running back, we've got good Ty Chandler. Ty Chandler had himself a game out there.
I cannot wait for TJ Hawkinson to return and see what this offense is like.
Hey, Kathy Skoll, we haven't seen Kathy with us for quite a while. Kathy, you deserve...
There we go.
There we go, Kathy. Thanks for being with us.
Let's start with game balls and donkeys. I know that Mr. Smith sent in a game ball, but not a donkey. I think his donkey was just a question mark. Do you remember who his game ball was?
Let me pull it up in our
I do remember who it was. It's Pat Jones.
Yeah, he went with Patrick Jones. That's a solid choice.
He's 4 sacks for 2 games as a backup, rotational player. That is huge.
We had talked a little bit about addition by subtraction on defense, and I don't want to knock Danielle Hunter because he was one of my favorite Minnesota Vikings during his time.
Don't you knock down Marcus Davenport either? Don't you do it?
We can knock Marcus Davenport. Kyle Smith will knock Marcus Davenport for us as well too. But I think you're being able to see players like Patrick Jones have more of a role out there on defense all of a sudden.
When looking at the depth chart, I wasn't sure he was going to make the team this year with all the new additions and everything. So for him to step up and play the way he has been against 2 offenses that I know people knock the Giants offense, but they aren't as bad in pass protection as people think they are, and Jones can be wily. So I mean, Patrick Jones deserves some respect for what he's been able to do. So I get that game ball totally.
Yeah, he sure does. For my game ball, I think this week there's a lot of different places you could go. Sam Darnold is deserving of one. I think Justin Jefferson, for the performance he put up. We'll talk about that big play here in a minute. You could give one to Jefferson.
But I do want to take
Uh,
1 second to talk about Sam Darnold because this was a really interesting game.
sure.
He had 268 passing yards, but oddly enough, 97 of those came on one play, so it's a little skewed.
Yeah, I knew someone was going to bring that up this
And
week. That's
Darnold did throw
always
one pick and have 2 fumbles, so I mean, he could literally be in the running for a donkey and a game ball award.
yeah, he could. And that's kind of going to be, not to get us too far off subject, but that is Sam Darnold. Like, you're not going to get too far off the median of what he is as a player. It's going to be, can you minimize his mistakes? And can he have more positives than negatives over the course of a season? But he's going to have those moments, Adam, where he'll fumble the ball, he'll throw an interception. Like, you're not going to completely coach that out of him, but can you maximize his strengths as a player? I think for my game ball this week, I want to go with I'm going to go with Ty Chandler
Okay,
out
okay.
there. Out there, we desperately needed a running game after last year, and him and Aaron Jones complement one another really well. And Ty Chandler, I think, had himself maybe his best game as a pro yesterday. He was really reliable when we needed him, and he doesn't look like a backup who's being thrust into a rotation. He looks like a starter, and I really like that from him.
I did think it was really interesting that on that one play, they credited that as a sack on Ty Chandler when it looked like he was going to throw a pass. In the stat book, that's a sack.
Yeah, he was clutching the ball. He was gonna throw a pass on that.
So I thought that was interesting that as a running back, he got sacked in that game.
Yeah,
But he only lost 1 yard on the sack, so that's not too bad. But he did end the day with 82 rushing yards. But he didn't catch a pass, which is pretty interesting.
yeah.
My game ball, I have been wanting to see this guy step up and play a real good game, and he did it in this game. Blake Cashman, the interior linebacker, him and Ivan Pace combined for 21 tackles in this game. And Cashman had 3 pass defenses and a hit on Brock Purdy. And, that hit was a sack, so Blake Cashman had a big game. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, you could go with a lot of defensive players in this game because that defensive end rotation, too, I mean, you could pick any of those guys.
Yeah, it was a Brian Flores, and his defense is a lot of fun to watch already, and we're only 2 weeks into the season.
You could pick Josh Metellus, you could pick Jihad Ward, you could pick any of those guys. Harrison
Yeah,
Smith.
Van Ginkel, you could
Oh,
go
yeah.
with him. He had another good game. I, I didn't know what to think of that signing when he came in. I was worried coming off an injury. Is he going to be able to, get back to the level that he played at before? I'll be perfectly honest. He was not a name I was super familiar with. So maybe I was not as excited as what I should have been. But getting him in purple, oh boy, I am super excited for Van Ginkel in
You remember
Minnesota
when we
now.
used to talk about Mike Zimmer getting guys that fit what he wanted to do and changing up the defense a little bit? And
Right.
that's exactly what we see going on with Brian Flores right now. His first season, he was dealing with a lot of guys, transitioning that that defense to be what he wanted it to be. And now that he's had another year to get some more of his guys in and incorporate them into what his strategy is, it's been great.
I think as Vikings fans, we should send a gift basket to Tua in Miami because those comments that he had in the offseason about Brian Flores are going to give us another year of him as our defensive coordinator in 2025. And I am all on board for keeping Brian Flores around as long as we can.
Are you ready to knock on as much wood as possible? Because this comment here from Scott, Will Reichert not missing a kick yet this year, and I think Minnesota is going to handle kickoffs the same way all year. I think they're going to keep booting it into the end zone. And do you know what? I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too. I need to knock on wood as well. We're cursed in Minnesota when it comes to talking positively about our kickers.
Right.
I'm afraid to do it, but I'm liking what I'm seeing from Will Reichert. Is the curse over? Is the curse finally over?
I'm not ready to say that.
You kick me a game-winning field goal in the playoffs, and I'll say the curse is over. Until we get to that point, I don't know. I'm afraid to even talk about it, Adam.
So the narrative has kind of, from this game on Sunday is kind of what we thought it was going to be, and it always is the Vikings games. When the Vikings get a good upset, it's always what's wrong with the 49ers, not what's right with the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm okay with that narrative. Continue to disrespect the Vikings. Continue to call us the underdog. We play better from that. We play better from that role. MC Sports. He says, "Hey
I
guys,
mean, the Vikings are what, almost 6 point underdogs in this game.
yeah, something like that."
It's pretty wild to think about, especially since the last time the 49ers won in Minnesota, the number one movie in theaters was A Few Good Men.
It was what, 93?
I don't remember exactly, but I know I looked up that stat for an article over on the Viking Age, and I thought it was hilarious.
It's been a long time.
And it's going to keep on going. I can't remember the last time I watched A Few Good Men, but I do remember the last time I watched the Vikings win, and that felt real good.
Oh, Vikings win. We are getting some good use out of the Vikings horn this week, Adam.
I missed that in week one. I know those away games, I know they're important, but there's nothing like hearing that horn and some Prince after a touchdown.
And the
It
skull
changes the
chant.
game.
I absolutely love the skull chant and the drums that they got going at US Bank Stadium. That's an awesome tradition that they started.
There was oddly quite a few 49ers fans at the stadium, though. I could hear chants for Kyle Juszczyk, and they were getting kind of loud on some of those Vikings third downs, and I don't think it was a major takeover by the 49ers, but it was a bigger San Francisco crowd than I thought it was
Yeah,
going to be.
they're a Super Bowl contender. They're a fan base that travels really well. It's a good, solid victory for the Vikings. I think beating a playoff caliber team. It's a statement game, I think, for the Vikings in the fact that they've been disrespected so hardcore by the national media.
You've had
No
national
one,
media say Minnesota might go winless this season. You saw that sometimes, or 3 wins, 4 wins, whatever.
yeah, there were outlets that were saying, well, what are the Vikings going to do with the number one overall pick next year? Like,
Yeah.
that's how little faith they had in us. So I know it's only week two, but you should be, as a fan, excited that you just beat the San Francisco 49ers. That's a playoff team. That's a statement win.
Yeah, I was seeing some analysts saying that Minnesota could be fortunate if they go 1-1 in this 2-game stretch here between the 49ers and the Texans. And honestly, that would have been good, but now there's that possibility of 2-0, and that would be absolutely wild.
Yeah. And you're looking at the Texans coming to town now, and you're going, yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I believe in this defense, and I believe in Kevin O'Connell and his ability to put together a game-winning formula, play to the strengths of our team.
Now, we do have to hope that Jordan Addison can come back from that ankle soreness. That'd be fantastic. And then we got Justin Jefferson, who left the game with an injury, but seems to be day to day. So that I don't think that's anything too serious. He sounds like he is fully intent on not missing a game, which is
He's not
great.
missing. You're going to have to handcuff him to the locker room to keep him out of the field. Like he's not. He's not doing
Yeah, when he was talking to the press, he sounded very focused on being on that field against
right.
Texans.
Right. Can we talk about his big touchdown reception?
Nope, we're not talking about that.
Yeah. What play was that? No. That was for younger fans out there. That was what it was like in '98 when Randall Cunningham would just unleash it and just rip it down the field to Randy Moss and just bomb it, and Moss would be between two defenders and take it to the house anyway.
This almost makes up for the time that Bernard Barron had that 99-yard touchdown reception, And he did it while I went to the bathroom during the commercial break.
Gus Frat to Bernard Barian. Yep.
Sad times. I came back and I was like, what happened?
But yeah, for younger fans out there who you wonder what it was like watching that era Minnesota Vikings, this is what it was like. This was Randall Cunningham to Randy Moss. This was Culpepper to Moss going deep. That ability to bomb it and just score from anywhere on the field. I think the big difference between the two players is that Moss was probably quicker than Justin Jefferson's straight line speed. He
Did
probably
Darnold throw that 55 yards in the air? It sure looked
yeah,
like it.
yes, he did. I think Moss had the ability to just burn defenders with straight line speed. Jefferson, he's more shifty. He was able to stop and get it.
And Naylor
Cut.
catching up on that play to get a little rub to slow down the defender was huge.
Ooh, boy, you can tell why they call him Speedy.
He's one fast gentleman. Now, I totally understand why Kyle Smith was hesitant to name a donkey, because it's hard to point out one guy in this game and be like, hey, they had a bad game.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. Scott, we'll get to your question/statement here in a minute. That's something I wanted to talk about as well, too. It's tough for me to be negative when the team is winning, because we've been through, as an older fan, we're both older fans, Adam. I love to enjoy when the team does well, because these moments don't always come around. And we both hate focusing on the negatives. I really don't want to give out a donkey this week.
Well, I had to do my article over on the Viking Age for my 3 winners and 2 losers, and I didn't feel fair giving away my donkeys, because the one was for Garrett Bradbury for rolling up on Justin Jefferson's leg, which, again, not really fair. That was an accident. And the other one was the Aaron Jones for that fumble on the goal line that could have put the game pretty much out of reach.
I thought about that too. I thought about going Aaron Jones and picking on him. That was there's never a good time to have a turnover. That was a really costly time to have a turnover. The positive out of that one, I suppose, is that the team was able to overcome adversity in that situation, get the ball back, was able to win the football game anyway.
Yeah, Aaron Jones had kind of a rough game all around, though. I mean, he only ran the
did.
ball 9 times for 32 yards. He had as many rushing yards as Sam Darnold in that game. Sam showed off some wheels, though.
Yeah, he did.
And he looks a lot more patient in the pocket. I know there's that old stigma that's still going around, of him seeing ghosts and being shaky in the pocket. I am not seeing that this season.
NFL Films did him dirty, or whoever did him dirty, by releasing that audio years ago of him saying that he's seen ghosts on the field.
Oh, yeah.
No matter how well this kid plays for the rest of his career, that's always going to be with him at this point. But you're right. I thought that he had moments that he could have regressed in this game, and he did not. I think that throw, obviously everyone is going to focus on the throw to Justin Jefferson. Great moment. He was able to fit the ball in to oh god damn it, just like, what's the name of the receiver, Adam?
I lost paying attention here. My cat was bothered me there, so I'm not sure what we're talking about. My bad.
Naylor. He fit the pass in to Naylor between the defenders, and that was a pass where the ball really had to be on target. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, but we also saw a similar play where Darnold tried to squeeze it in and it was intercepted. So, I mean, I get that he was getting a little comfortable and a little bit into his reads, but I hope he still errs on the side of caution in the future.
We'll say Skol, John. Thank you for joining us in the chat. We also have Tommy Gunn. Jefferson is no longer seeking a trade to the Atlanta Falcons. I believe he is perfectly happy in Minnesota.
You know who isn't happy, though, is Jamar Chase. Who knows what's going to happen with that guy?
Yeah, he does not want to seem to take a contract extension with the Bengals.
And Adam Thielen did not look happy either.
Yeah, Scott brought this up. With the Panthers, They're terrible. They're probably picking number 1 overall again, going a different direction. They benched Bryce Young. What's the point of keeping Adam Thielen around if you're the Panthers? You might as well just give him back to us in Minnesota. I'll take Adam Thielen back in purple. He can fill in, be wide receiver 3 or 4 for this team, and be a veteran presence for us, right?
For the right price, I'd be down for it. But with what he was scheduled to make when he was in Minnesota, you can't do that.
Yeah, you'd have to bring him back in for veteran minimum. And I think considering how poorly everything has gone in Carolina, he'd take that veteran minimum contract to come back to Minnesota.
But I have seen him doing more community events in Minnesota lately, so maybe he's just really missing the area too.
Right.
That said, it is still 65 degrees right here, and I am not loving that. That's too hot. Or 85 degrees here for me, that's too hot. I don't handle heat well.
Yeah, the game wasn't as close as the score suggested. You're right. I think
The
the
turnaround
Vikings,
on that Aaron Jones fumble really changed the whole perspective of the game.
It really did. And also, I think you look at the yardage that we allowed the 49ers to give up. It doesn't really tell the score of how good the Vikings defense played. Like, if you just look at it, you go, yeah, boy, it looks like they put up a decent chunk of yards for against the Vikings defense. And that's not really the case.
Well, San Francisco wants to win the game on the ground, in the trenches, running the football, getting like 150 so yards or so, and they could not get that going against Minnesota. Minnesota took that right away. I think they had like 102 yards rushing on the day or something like that. Even without Christian McCaffrey, I mean, that was still their plan. And Mason is a bowling ball of a runner. He's hard to bring down, and Minnesota was able to slow him down.
Yeah, they had 102 yards total on the ground. Mason with 100 yards and a touchdown out there.
He is one hard running back, that guy. He's going to be a challenge for people going up against him.
Jeez, I didn't realize the Vikings total had 146 yards on the ground with a combined average of 6.1 yards per carry.
Oh, yeah. Minnesota's running the ball well. They was not making many changes on the offensive line or anything like that. And I don't think like Aaron Jones wasn't a big part of that on Sunday. So what was the big difference? Because San Francisco's defense is no joke. And they were moving the ball pretty well on the ground, which is interesting because you wouldn't expect that from what this team did last year with Alexander Mattison.
Right. That was one of the criticisms I wanted to bring up. Occasionally, Kevin O'Connell will do this where I think he will get a little too cute with the play calling. And you're looking at how well the run game was going. You're looking at Ty Chandler, 8.2 was his average yards per carry, 82 yards on the game. So when they got down around the goal line and they tried that pass, they tried the fake play with him where he was going to pass it into the end zone. I get it. And you always say, if it works, oh my God, look at how smart they were. That was the trick play of the game. But when you're running the ball that well, maybe just continue to run it. Just go with a
And what happened to that
call.
one play where it looked like they tried snapping the ball to Johnny Munt or whatever the heck that was?
Yeah, I don't know. So occasionally he'll get a little too creative, and his game management skills, his clock management skills, occasionally leave a little bit to desired. He got a little fired up on the sidelines at one point. He's arguing with the ref, and you got to remember that he's our play caller. He's calling plays on offense. Too much time goes off the clock. He's not able to get the play call in. They got to call a timeout. Okay.
Here's a fun stat from that game, though. The 49ers, which I just saw in chat there, somebody brought it up. On 3rd and 4th down, the 49ers were 3 for 13 in conversions, and that's not going to win you football games. Good call on that one, Tommy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see Minnesota come out and have that kind of defense again, being able to hold on those important downs the way they did against the 49ers. I know Houston has a lot of weapons. They can run the ball well. They've got talented receivers. We're going to see a homecoming from several former Vikings in that game as well. So it's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, we brought that up earlier in the show, John. I'm not sure if you were with us then or not, but Andrew Van Ginkel, like I said, he's looking already to be probably maybe the strongest addition out there on defense. And
He
dude,
almost brought another one back to the house. So
yeah,
close.
he almost did. Is he even like fully up to speed yet, health wise? Like, is he still on a pitch count at all, or like?
For someone that sat out training camp in the preseason, he is hitting the ground running.
Right, very very impressive performance from Andrew Van Ginkel so far here in Minnesota.
Now, I did read that the Vikings rookie pass rusher had suffered a small injury, but it's still considered day to day and shouldn't be anything too major. I mean, Dallas Turner is a rotational player at this point, and he comes in on special packages to get a little bit of extra pass rush. But I do think Minnesota puts a lot of weight on having those additional pass rushers to be able to take advantage of those situations and keep fresh players on the field when they can.
Right, I think that that's really important. You know, we've wanted that for quite a while. I remember even going back to when Mike Zimmer was, head coach calling the defense out there, where we had wanted to see more of a rotation out there on defense with your core players, and we're finally getting to see that, and that's helping guys like Patrick Jones get out there and be fresh, and you put him in a position to succeed, and you're seeing him have a career year for the Vikings already through 2 games. So I'm loving that rotation.
I do want to give a little bit extra credit too, though, and I really enjoyed the videos where Harrison Phillips was talking about his extension and had his family and everything, because I did not realize how huge of a season he had last year in Minnesota. The difference between 2 years ago to last year was massive, and he is so happy to be back in Minnesota, and Minnesota really needed him in the middle, and the fact that Minnesota was able to hold up as well as they did against the San Francisco offensive line that's got the beef is incredible.
Yeah, you're right. Like you said, quietly a very good player. Then that happens sometimes with your guys out there on the defensive line. They can be very good at what they do, and it doesn't always flash on screen to your average fan. And I feel like that's Harrison Phillips is kind of that player. He doesn't always flash for you and I, but he's doing above and beyond what he needs to do on defense, and allowing the players around him to succeed as well too.
Yeah, looking up and down the stat lines from this game on Sunday, there's not really a whole lot that stands out as far as like performances that you weren't expecting. We knew Justin Jefferson was going to get some big games, but once again, he only got 7 targets. I wonder how that would have shaken out if he had been able to play the full game.
Yeah,
If that would have been closer to 10 or so, which would have been nice.
I've always loved that argument, and I'm not knocking anything you just said, Adam, but I've always loved that argument that people used to make on like Adrian Peterson or whatever, where they'd be like, well, if you take away the 96-yard touchdown run that he didn't have a very good game. And it's like, yeah, well, but you can't do that.
Right.
That's not how this works. And I know that that's not the point that you were making, but like with Jefferson, you're going to see that, I think, a lot more as his career kind of progresses, because he's getting double teamed, sometimes triple teamed so much that you're using him as a decoy. You're using him to allow other players to get open, and he's going to crack 1 or 2 big plays for big chunk yardages
What
down
was
the
the thing that
field.
Jefferson said about the 49ers defense wanting to cover him the way they covered the Jets?
You talking in his post game press conference?
No, this is before the game. Like, if they want to cover me the way they were covering Jared Wilson or something like that, they're going to have a long day or something like that. Before the game, he's talking about that, because I guess they said that, they did a good job on Garrett Wilson. They're going to approach that, Justin Jefferson's a similar strategy, and Justin Jefferson's like,
Yeah, I love it. And what I love about Jefferson is he's such a humble player, because there are, and Kevin O'Connell has talked about this, when he does his press conferences and whatnot with the media, is that there are a lot of designed plays where the ball is not going his direction. He's designed to be a decoy, okay? So you talk about being able to put your ego aside as a player and understand that I am doing this to get other players open and to get other players the ball. There's not a lot of big time wide receivers who would be willing to do that. And I will knock like a Stephon Diggs for a minute. Diggs hated that rule. Diggs don't want to be a decoy. He
No.
wants to be the guy on offense. Now, don't get me wrong. Justin Jefferson wants to be the guy on offense, and he is the guy on offense, but he's also willing to understand, hey, if I can take two defenders and pull them over here, and that's going to let Jalen Naylor get open over here and get him the ball, that's better for the team, and eventually I'm going to get mine.
Yeah, Naylor has been wide open on several occasions just because of the attention that Justin Jefferson can draw. He drew in 2-3 defenders at times and left other pass catchers wide open. And it's that
Yeah.
kind of play calling and that kind of strategy, distractions and whatnot that this Vikings team is thriving on. They're making things as easy as possible for Sam Darnold right now, and Darnold is taking full advantage of that.
Yeah, I love Jefferson getting the oxygen on the sideline, getting the mask as well too. Good stat to bring up that it was 127 yards that he actually ran on that pass between him cutting across the field and everything. Good stat to bring up there, Jonathan.
And props to the ref too for keeping up on that play. He was trucking.
Ooh, he was trucking, and did you see him turn around? Man, he popped his hips and turned around and backpedaled into the end zone as well too. That ref, that ref deserves a game ball for that performance as well too. He kept up out there on the field. I love Justin.
I don't have a ton to talk about with this game. I'm just still kind of stunned because I was not expecting Minnesota to come out, and I'm not going to say like Minnesota didn't outfire, they didn't outshoot the 49ers in this game. They were grinding this game out. They were taking on the field and they were winning this game. They weren't, this wasn't a lucky win. Minnesota was out there doing their thing.
They had a game plan, and that's something that we haven't seen for a while, at least on offense, is that the team coming out and having a solid game plan and sticking to it, and dare I say, out coaching the other team and coming up with a solid win. I wanted to talk real quick before I forget about Sam Darnold, and I think that his ability to trust Justin Jefferson when he's covered, and just like we say all the time, man, F it, he's out there somewhere. Like, you got to do that. And I know occasionally this is going to bite us in the ass and he's going to throw an extra interception. And I'm okay with that because you have to give your superstars that chance to make that play. Because more times than not, Justin Jefferson is going to make you that play. If there's two defenders and you can get the ball in just the right spot, Jets is going to jump up and he's going to one hand that baby and he's going to bring it down and you're going to have a highlight play. And I don't want to knock completely on Kirk because I respect his time and what he did with the Vikings, but Kirk wasn't always willing to make that play. And I love the fact that Darnold will.
Early in this game, Darnold was throwing some 50-50 balls Jefferson's way, and the 49ers were knocking them down a little bit and making it a frustrating game at the early stages. But it's like we always talk about with star players. You can contain them for so long, but you can't stop them. It's that Michael Jordan effect,
Right. Real Purple and Gold. Skull, thank you for joining us on this Victory Monday. The Minnesota Vikings are 2-0 on the season. We are going to use the hell out of that button this week, Adam, because like I said, all along, you got to celebrate your victories when they come because you never know when you're going to get them, and it's always a blast to enjoy it. And you're right, Adam. You have to give your superstar plays that chance to go out there and make those plays. That's why you
remember when people used to complain, why is Adrian Peterson on the ball for 1 yard, 2 yard, 3 yard, 2 yard? It's like you keep getting him touches, he's going to break one.
Yeah, and he was a volume player. He was a volume back. You had to be okay with, like you said, 3 yards, 2 yards, negative 1 yards. Oh shit, all of a sudden Adrian Peterson just went for 48 yards to the house and
Yep.
he ran over about 3 defenders in the process because that's was the kind of player that he was out there. And that's Justin Jefferson. You have to I'm okay with Sam Darnold taking those shots. You got to take the shot with him. You might get that interception, and that's going to suck. And you hope that your team is able to come together and play complementary football, defense and special teams. We had a good special teams performance this week as well, too. What they were able to block, was it a punt? Was it a
Oh yeah.
blocked punt? Yeah, out there, CJ Ham
Ham out
blocked.
there blocking a punt.
Yeah, CJ Ham out there blocking punts. You could have given him a game ball for that as well, too. So we're seeing some good complimentary football out there. But that's where I was going with my little rant here, is that I'm okay with taking those risks because you've got to give Justin Jefferson the opportunity, man. You got
There
to
are
do it.
players you just can't game plan for, and they will wreck your game. And Vikings fans are probably a little bit extra familiar with this, especially if they watched the Dallas game on Sunday, where Mike Zimmer's defense got absolutely rolled again by Alvin Kamara.
They poor Mike Zimmer. That defense looked like it had all of the same issues that the
Whew.
Vikings defense had when he left Minnesota. I they got absolutely
I don't know
gouged.
where the game plan messes up with him or how he just completely nullifies it, but wow.
Dude, I don't know. I get it. You want to bring in like Eric Kendricks. He was a good player. He's your guy. He understands your defense. I, he can't be a focal point of a defense in 2024 anymore. Like Kendricks is cooked. Like you can't bring him in. Like I don't know what they're doing in Dallas.
But one of our major questions is how much longer are the Vikings going to be able to hold on to Flores? There's going to be a point where he's going to get some opportunities. Will it take whatever happened in Miami to clear off or people to like forget about it? Will it take that? Is that what it's going to take?
And that's why I was joking. I was like, as Vikings fans, I'm sending to a gift basket for like, please keep him our defensive coordinator as long as possible. What I think about Brian Flores is that after what he went through in Miami, he is going to be very selective about his next opportunity as well. So if the absolute dumpster fire that is the Carolina Panthers decide they want to do another complete rebuild and get rid of the head coach and the GM and Bryce Young and start over, Brian Flores is not taking that job in Carolina. Like he's not doing that.
Yeah, I wouldn't see him be too interested in that. And I don't know if you guys watched the locker room celebration of the Vikings. I sent it in our private chat, but boy,
Yeah.
those guys all look like they are having an absolute blast.
They love him in Minnesota. I mean, you've seen his press conference where the players, came out with their arms crossed and they had his back. They have his back here in Minnesota. Yeah. So part of me wonders too that he'll interview somewhere this offseason. Like I have no doubts on that. But I also think that he might just want to stick around here.
I wouldn't blame him one bit.
It's a good fit. Like these good fits don't come around that often. Him and Kevin O'Connell are on the same page. They're letting him, and rightfully so, run the whole show on defense. He's the head coach of the defense for this team in terms of signing free agents and drafting players. And like, it's a really good opportunity for these two to build something special. And if I'm Brian Flores, where we talk a lot about 2025 being the year for the Vikings to really build something special in terms of what you have on money to spend on free agents and JJ McCarthy coming in, you got to stick around. He's got to stick around for 2025 because that could be such a special season. I wouldn't want to see him leave. I really wouldn't.
I felt so weird in week one talking about how the Giants were going to be a good initial test for Minnesota since we had no idea what the Vikings were actually going to be like. And then week two rolls on to the 49ers. I'm thinking, well, the 49ers are one of the best teams in the NFL. So, this is going to be another huge test. Minnesota passed that test too. And now we're looking at week three, the Houston Texans. You know what? This is going to be another really tough test.
It's another really tough test, but I feel like they've studied well. Like this feels like a very well prepared, very well studied Minnesota Vikings team. Is it difficult? Yes. Do I think they can pass it? Yeah. Like I right now, I kind of believe in this Minnesota Vikings team.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of experts and analysts backtracking right now. They didn't understand what the Vikings did on the defensive side of the ball and how they were going to be able to take Sam Darnold. And I'm not going to say hide Sam Darnold because I don't think that's what they're doing.
Right.
I think they can play to his strengths because I do think Sam Darnold has strengths. I don't think you have to hide him the way you'd hide like a Daniel Jones or something like that.
Right.
And
No,
we saw
you
Sam Darnold
definitely
rip off that 55-yard pass in the air right to Justin Jefferson. That pass couldn't have gotten much better.
He's always had the arm strength. He's always had the physical gifts and abilities to go out there and make those kind of plays. It's Kevin O'Connell, and we're only 2 games into the season, but we're sort of getting a sample size with him of his ability to work with different quarterbacks and maximize their strengths. We're seeing it with Sam Darnold. He did an excellent job with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick Mullins threw for what 400 yards in a game out there. We had the Josh Dobbs show for a little bit. I mean, he's really showing his ability to work with different quarterbacks and get the most out of them. It's why, as a Vikings fan, for the first time in my life, the first time since Dante Culpepper, that I can sit here and go, I'm excited for what this coach is going to do with JJ McCarthy because I actually believe that they can develop him and not just I have to say that about Christian Ponder because I'm a Vikings fan.
Right.
Like I actually think that this is the coach that can turn
Andrew's got an
JJ
interesting
McCarthy.
conversation going there. The Vikings do have a bit of a history of trying to take a player and force him to do things that aren't their biggest strength. And I don't think the Vikings are doing that at all this year. You're not seeing like a Joe Webb coming out here trying to be a pocket passer. You're not seeing that.
Yeah.
And stuff like that will just infuriate people. Like when they draft an offensive tackle, I'm like, oh, they can play right guard. Are you sure? You sure about that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, like you could even look at like Brad Childress drafted Tavares Jackson in the 2nd round. T-Jack was his quarterback. And you can here, there, or indifferent on what your thoughts were on him as a player. Trying to make him more of a drop back traditional passer was never the route to go
No.
with T-Jack. So you're right. That's like you draft a player and then you're trying to make him fit a system he probably was never suited to run. So why not tailor an offense to what your players' strengths are? Who brought this up? Someone brought this up here in the chat. Tommy Gunn, thank you. Texans barely beat the Bears at home. They can be got. That's what I said a couple weeks ago when we were doing schedule prediction is that, like, can they beat the Texans? That depends if you believe that Brian Flores can put together a defense that can confuse CJ Stroud. I believe in CJ Stroud, but he's still a young, developing quarterback. Brock Purdy basically admitted he was confused by what Minnesota was running out there on defense. So can Flores put together a scheme that's going to get to the Texans and confuse them? Potentially, yeah. And if they can
This has
do
been
that,
a pretty wild NFL season. You had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Lions, which is something that a lot of people did not see happening.
Dude, this is why I love the NFL so much. You can sit here before the season starts with your pad and paper and go, X, Y, and Z teams are going to win here and blah, 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 blah. And you can schedule it all out on what's going to happen. And then when you play the games, it's just chaos. It's just chaos, dude.
Now, we do have to be a little scared because week 4 is approaching, and we thought Minnesota might be facing the Packers with Malik Willis, and Malik Willis played pretty well in week 2.
Yeah, but didn't they run the ball like 40 times?
They did.
So they got to be afraid of Malik Willis a little bit. They're like a little bit, we really don't trust him. we really don't want him throwing the football.
Yeah, but I mean, to be able to find ways to win is what's important. We talk about
Right,
constantly.
right.
You can't base your stuff off who you're playing. You got to go out there and play who you're scheduled.
And that is at Green Bay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't care who your quarterback is. Going to Lambeau Field is always a difficult task. It's always a difficult decision. Uh, difficult decision. It's always difficult to go in and get the win in Lambeau. So no, that's not an easy just Malik Willis sucks. That's a win for the Vikings. Like that will
But
be a
that's what you were hearing all preseason, all leading up to this season was, oh, the Vikings are going to be bad because they have Sam Darnold and he's bad. That's all you heard.
yeah.
And that narrative is not gone, but
And
it's definitely quieted.
It's not, but this morning on one of the shows I was watching, one of the insiders, Adam Schefter, or pretend any of the million insiders that are out there now, casually mentioned Sam Darnold and NFL Comeback Player of the Year in the same sentence.
Ooh.
So, like, that's way too early, even as a Vikings fan who's clearly drinking the Kool-Aid on what this team can do. That's a little too early to be saying those kind of statements out
Now,
there
I
yet.
would love to talk about the future of Sam Darnold in Minnesota, but Minnesota does only have him on a one-year deal, and you've got to assume that when J.J. McCarthy comes back for 2025 that he's going to be the guy. So at that point, you'd love to bring Darnold back to be behind McCarthy, but you can't pay him that kind of backup money if he's going to be a decent, fringe starter in the league.
Yeah, this is a great conversation to have, Adam. Thank you for bringing it up. So if Kevin O'Connell is able to coach Sam Darnold into having he's in the conversation for comeback player of the year kind of season for the Vikings, conventional wisdom would tell you, well, yeah, you got to bring him back. You got to bring him back to Minnesota. But we were hearing rumblings a little bit that maybe JJ McCarthy was going to jump in front of Sam Darnold in the depth chart before he got hurt. So that tells me that if he can do that with Sam Darnold, he's going to do even better for JJ McCarthy. Like McCarthy is going to have an excellent career and season in Minnesota as well too. So you don't delay that. You get McCarthy
at this point,
on
you
the
have to
field.
believe that McCarthy is the guy in the future for the future in Minnesota. Right. There's no reason to think otherwise.
Right. And it's that's going to be a difficult conversation when we get there, I think, for a lot of Vikings fans, because we've never had that conversation before. It's always been, oh my God, Case Keenum had a really good year, and it's what do we do without him? Because there's never really been an actual answer for the team.
Right.
There hasn't.
And I am quite tired of the, sign an aging free agent quarterback to play, for the season. I'm tired of that. I'm ready for a rookie or a young quarterback to come in and be the guy for a while. I am ready for that.
Yeah. I haven't bought one yet, but I want to buy a JJ McCarthy jersey, and I want to hang it in my closet, and I want that to be the only jersey I wear on game day Sundays for the next 10 years in Minnesota.
Not your Bowringer jersey?
Or the Darren Sharper one that was given to me as a gag gift.
Oh, no. Not good.
Yeah,
but that's all I got really for this week. You got anything else you want to talk about?
I'm excited for this team, as you guys can tell. I'm excited. I'm pumped for the direction. I think it was a good win. I think that as Vikings fans, I always want to remind everyone it's okay to be excited when your team wins a football game, because a lot of times we're not, and maybe it's because we don't win playoff games, or we don't go to the Super Bowl, or whatever. We find a way to lose the big one at the end, and you get just so worked up over everything. It's okay to be excited. We should be excited as Vikings fans that we beat the 49ers. And it's okay to sit here on Victory Monday and believe that you're going to beat the Texans. Like we're fans. It's okay to do that. That's my big takeaway.
Yeah, that is more than fine. I'm good with that. I do want to thank everyone who joins us in the chat because we love having you guys here. And I did see people asking how they can come on the show. And honestly, during the season, I don't think we like having special guests during the regular season. But if you wait until an off-season episode, we might be able to squeeze some people in if we got people that can't make it. And we would love to have that happen sometime, I think.
You
That'd be
betcha.
good.
Like Adam said, the chat this week, you guys have been fantastic. We love having all of you with us. You guys are killing game ball to everyone in the chat this week.
Absolutely.
Kevin O'Connell gave a game ball to the entire locker room after the win, and I always wonder, like, who pays for those?
Right?
Who pays for all the game balls that he gives out? Like, someone somewhere has to. And
are they like decorative? Right? They got things on them.
I wonder.
Just regular footballs.
Is it is it an actual game used ball?
I don't know. These are the questions we need to ask.
Because you see,
I don't know.
You do see when they're like up above their computer desk in the office, it'll be a game ball, but it'll have stitching.
Yeah.
Saying, oh, Adrian Peterson, Vikings versus Chargers. Yeah, 200 and what was it, 96?
296, yep.
296 yards. Like, is that the actual game ball, or is that a commemorative game ball?
It's a bedazzled ball.
It's a bedazzled ball. Is that ball now being taken by the Houston? Do we not want to talk about that? His legal issues.
But you can catch the full catalog of episodes over on our YouTube channel. I don't know why you'd want to go back and listen to a bunch of old episodes about Vikings football, but you could if you wanted to. They are there. The most recent 4 or 5 or so episodes will be available wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Podomatic, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you go, Google Podcasts, I don't know. We're all over the place. Just find us and we'll be there. But please, if you do see us, leave a review. Give it a like or whatever people do. Share it with your friends. Keep the conversation going. We would love to get for this podcast to continue growing and talk about Vikings football with you guys every week like we do. I mean, we're 500 and a bunch episodes in?
I don't even know.
It's way too many. That's all I know. We are lots of episodes in. And I do appreciate that you guys have allowed us to do this and kept this going. I don't know if we do this every week, if not for you guys. We enjoy doing it, but it makes it a lot more fun when you guys are here. So thank you very much. But you can check out my work over on the Viking Age. I put out articles quite often about Vikings football, the winners, losers, weather conditions, announcers, referees. I go a little too in depth on the referees in a game, and I feel weird about that. I shouldn't care about where they went to high school and things like that. That should not matter to me, but I learn it. Don't know why I do, but I do. But you can also check me out on social media at MNVikingZombie. That's me. You can interact with me on X, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram. I just recently posted a nice Instagram picture of my cat, Bernie, sleeping. It's adorable. You got to promote your stuff, West. Come on.
I am fixing the stuff that Kyle Smith wrote here because I like to capitalize things. You can check my work out too. Where is my stuff? You can tell I don't do this part of the podcast very often. There's me on Blue Sky at Vaguely Square is my social media platform of choice. Adam knows this as we head into the Halloween season. We start watching all of the terrible low-budget horror movies out there. Yeah. So doing a lot of talking about those right now on social media. I found a fantastic video about an entire subgenre of just knockoff Nightmare on Elm Street movies that I did not know existed.
Oh, those must be fun.
Oh, boy. And so I now have a list of about 10 movies that I need to track down.
Nice.
And we'll be talking about those over on Blue Sky. You can check out my photography work at kylewest84.picfair.com. That's PICFAIR.com. So go ahead and check that out, and you can share it on social media, your social media of choice. I would appreciate that.
Oh yeah, we'll be back next week. I don't know if Mr. Smith will be back. I hope he will be because I enjoy having all three of us here. Not
Especially
that
after a win.
It feels pretty old school though. It's just me and you, West.
Right.
We haven't done this in years.
We need the audio to drop, and for one of us to say, "Oh, we got to
That one
record
time
the
we had to
whole thing
record an
over
episode
again."
3 times. That was awful.
Yeah, that's out there
Absolutely awful.
somewhere. That's on our YouTube somewhere. You can listen to it. You can probably find it.
But we'll be back next week to talk about the game against the Texans and see if Minnesota can make it 3-0 on the year. That'd be fantastic. But in the meantime, stay classy, Minnesota.